Hello, second grade friends. Today we are working on fractions again because this whole unit is about fractions. And so we are going to do lesson 9.4, which is about creating thirds. The last lesson you did, we were creating halves. So this lesson is about creating thirds. There's a fancy word we use when we divide up shapes and when you cut shapes into parts. We call that partition. We call that partition. I can partition shapes. And so that's what you're doing. You're going to partition shapes into thirds today. So your I can statement, you have two I can statements. First one is I can partition a shape into thirds. And the second one is I can shade in part of a shape to match the fraction, which you've kind of already done a little bit of on some of our other lessons where we're shading in parts to match the fraction that we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to watch a video. It's about 4.5 minutes, but it talks about everything we've talked about, and then we'll go over and I will show you how we're going to do it.
Hello, and welcome to Common Core for Kids Nightly News. Tonight, we have a very special report on someone amazing. That would be me, of course. Number one. Let's take a look at the video.
There's that fancy word, partitioning. They shared it. Are they all equal? A third. Do you remember the vocabulary word for that number that is down on the bottom? Denominator. They both start with D. Denominator is down, and it shows how many parts are in the whole thing.
In this case, we have 3 parts that make up the whole circle, so we have a 3 on the bottom. Now on the top, we have the number 1. If you look at the third of the circle that is colored,
Remember that number on the top is called the numerator. It's either how many parts are shaded or how many parts we're talking about. Remember, he said he has 1/3. So that's why his number is 1. That's what he's talking about. That's his parts.
the number 1 on top represents my part of the circle. I have 1/3.
This is a review from the last lesson because there's only 2 pieces. Think about what we called that when we broke it into 2 pieces. It's a special word he's going to talk about here in a minute.
And they are equal to each other, so we have a fraction. I have 2 pieces which make a whole. One of these pieces makes up half of the whole shape. Together, I have 2 halves of the whole shape. That is awesome. Here is another circle, and I divided this circle into 4 separate parts.
This is a little bit of a preview for tomorrow's lesson. Tomorrow's lesson is going to be on fourths, but today we're just focused on thirds. So this is just a little preview for tomorrow's lesson.
Right now, I have 4 pieces over 4 pieces. We call these 4 fourths. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. But,
hey, I want one. Me too.
I have 3 sisters that want a piece of the circle. I have 1/4 of the circle, but can you tell me how many fourths of the circle my sisters have? They have 3/4 of the circle. These fractions are easier than I thought. Thank you so much for helping me today.
Okay, so today we're talking about thirds. Do you remember that very first lesson we talked about where I showed you this cookie and we talked about equal parts and unequal parts? This is how I broke my cookie up into thirds. And remember, my friends did not think that was very fair. That other video kind of talked about that also. It's really hard to cut a circle into thirds, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. So, look at this way they cut the cookie into thirds. That's much more equal, and my friends would be much happier for me to share it that way. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at these different shapes and how we can partition them. Remember, that's cutting them up. How I can partition them into thirds. Remember, thirds is 3 thirds. So circles are really, really hard, and triangles are going to be really, really hard too. But I'm going to tell you a fancy trick that's going to make this way easier. I'm going to take my marker, and I'm going to put a dot in the center. Well, that doesn't seem too hard, does it? Okay. Now, I'm going to go out from my center this way, and I'm going to make kind of a Y in the middle. And then I'm going to go out this way, and then I'm going to go down. Okay, so then I have a third here, 1/3. Here is 1/3, and here is 1/3. They might not be exactly perfect, and that's okay because circles are really hard, like I said. You put your dot in the middle, and then you make a Y. Okay, let's try my triangle. My triangle is going to also be difficult to do that. Okay, so I've got my dot in the middle, and then I'm going to make a Y shape. Okay, I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go up here, and then I'm going to go down here. I made a Y. Now, remember, those are really, really tricky. You won't have to do anything with a triangle, but you're making a Y. You're making your dot in the center, and you're making a Y in the middle. The rectangles and the squares are probably the easiest because you can just make straight lines as long as you make sure that they are straight. You can go vertical or you can go horizontal. With my square, I am going to go horizontal. So I'm going to go 1 here, and then I'm going to go 1 here. And remember, it's really hard for Mrs. Hoffmeister to draw straight lines with this mouse, but you'll do way better. Now, I'm going to do my square vertical. I'm going to do the rectangle vertical. We did the square horizontal, and I might have said those words wrong just a minute ago. But I'm going to go, here's 1. And then I'm going to go over here's 1. And I want to make them as equal as I can. And remember, they're not going to necessarily be exactly perfect, but as long as it looks pretty close. Okay? So Our focus for today is partitioning, cutting shapes into thirds. Okay? See, there's that Y right there in the middle. Perfect. Here's an anchor chart that will be on your Schoology page. We have one whole, we have halves, and the words we're going to use, 1/2, 2 halves, half of. We also have thirds, split into 3 equal parts, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 1/3 of. Okay, so you're going to have this picture to help you. It will be on your Schoology page. You also have these fraction puzzles that I sent home with you. You can cut these apart and you can even cut them out, follow these funny little lines, and then you can make it a puzzle and mix it up and make it match, okay? So this is just extra practice with fractions. There's thirds, and then we also have halves. And we have one whole. That one's gonna be hard to cut out. Look at that shape. I did not send home the fraction puzzle recording sheet with you, I don't think. If I did, you can just match it up and you can write it down. I can't remember if I did that or not. Okay, here's the worksheet. The top part of the worksheet, you're going to partition. Remember, that means cut it into thirds. Partition each shape into thirds. So first we're going to split it. So I got to put my dot in the middle and I got to make that Y. And then I'm going to split this one. I'm going to split this circle again and I'm going to split this one. Then I need to match the fraction, shade it in to match the fraction. This one's 0. That one's tricky. Don't let it fool you. And then the bottom part, you get to cut out each one of these, and then you get to put them, glue them onto where they belong. Which one do they match with? Okay, these lighter ones are a little bit harder to see. So if you need to come back to the video and pause it right here to see which colors are shaded in, they might be a little harder to see on your worksheets. Okay, so you're going to cut them out and you're going to match them up. Are they 1/2? Are they 1/3? Or are they 2/3?